Okay, let's talk about one of the most effective, but maybe also one of the most misunderstood forms of birth control out there. We're talking about something you can literally set and forget for years. Today, we're going to demystify the intrauterine device, you know it as the IUD.
Hey everyone, and welcome to MediByte. Our whole mission here is to give you clear, reliable health information so you can feel confident and empowered when you're making decisions about your health. So, let's jump right in. So, are you kind of tired of thinking about birth control every single day, or even every month? Well, that's where something called long-acting reversible contraception, or LARC, comes into play. And let me tell you, in that whole category, the IUD is a total rock star.
So what makes it so popular? Honestly, it really boils down to this one incredible number. IUDs are more than 99% effective at preventing pregnancy. That's huge. It makes them one of the absolute most reliable forms of reversible birth control you can get.
So here's what we're going to cover today. We'll start with what an IUD actually is. Then we'll break down the two main kinds you can get. We'll dive into the benefits, talk honestly about the risks, and then walk through exactly what you can expect when it's put in and taken out.
All right, first things first, let's start at the very beginning. What exactly is an IUD?
Okay, so an IUD, which stands for intrauterine device, is this small, super flexible, T-shaped device. It's made of plastic, and a healthcare professional places it inside your uterus. It's designed to just hang out in there and provide continuous protection against pregnancy for years at a time.
So how can this tiny little thing be so powerful? Well, it basically works by making the uterus a really unwelcoming environment for sperm. It can stop sperm from moving the way they need to, essentially preventing them from ever reaching an egg to fertilize it in the first place. Okay, so it's important to note that not all IUDs are created equal. You've basically got two main teams to choose from, the hormonal IUD and the copper IUD.
And this is a really key decision. So on one side, you've got hormonal IUDs. They release a tiny bit of the hormone progestin right into the uterus. They can last anywhere from 3 to 8 years, and this is a big plus for many. They often make periods way lighter, or sometimes they even go away completely. On the other side, you've got the copper IUD. This one is totally hormone-free. The copper itself is what prevents pregnancy. It can last for a whopping 10 years or more. But the trade-off is that it can make periods heavier and cramping a bit more intense, especially at first.
We've already said that IUDs are over 99% effective, which is amazing. But let's actually put that incredible number into some real-world context, because this is where they really shine.
Look at this. For methods like the pill or condoms, you see this big gap between perfect use and typical use. That gap? That's just life. It's human error. Forgetting a pill, not using a condom correctly. But with an IUD, there is no user error. Once it's in, it just works. This means its typical use effectiveness is the exact same as its perfect use effectiveness, which makes it just unbelievably reliable.
And beyond just being super reliable, the convenience is a huge win. We're talking years of protection with no daily pills to remember. Plus, it's totally reversible. As soon as you get it taken out, your fertility bounces right back. In fact, most people who want to get pregnant can within a year. Oh, and here's a pretty cool potential bonus. Some studies show hormonal IUDs might even lower your risk of uterine and ovarian cancer.
And here's something else that's just incredible. The copper IUD isn't just for long-term birth control. It's actually the most effective form of emergency contraception out there. If it's put in within 5 days of unprotected sex, it's nearly 100% effective at preventing a pregnancy. And then, you could just leave it in for years of worry-free protection. It's a 2-for-1 deal.
But, of course, like with any medical device or medication, nothing is absolutely perfect. To get the whole story, we have to talk about the potential risks and side effects.
So the most common issues are the ones we just touched on: changes to your period and cramping. For some people, these changes can be pretty bothersome, and they're actually the main reasons why someone might choose to have their IUD taken out early. Now, there is a small risk that the IUD could come out of the uterus on its own. That's called expulsion. But you should know this is pretty uncommon. It happens in less than 5% of women during that first year.
Okay, serious complications are very rare, but it's still important you know about them. There's something called perforation, where the IUD pokes through the wall of the uterus when it's being put in. Again, super unlikely. And while it's true that if you did get pregnant with an IUD, which is already almost impossible, that pregnancy is more likely to be ectopic, your overall risk of an ectopic pregnancy is actually lower than for someone using no birth control, simply because pregnancy itself is so rare. And finally, There's a tiny temporary bump in the risk of infection, but really only for the first month or so after it's inserted.
And now, for the part that I think a lot of people get anxious about, the actual procedure. So let's just walk through exactly what happens when you get an IUD put in and taken out so we can demystify this whole thing.
Honestly, the process is pretty quick and straightforward. First, your provider will do a standard pelvic exam. Then, they'll use a speculum, the same tool they use for a pap smear, to get a clear view of your cervix. The IUD itself is inside a really thin, sterile tube, which they use to guide it up through your cervix and into your uterus. Once it's in the right spot, they just slide the tube out, and the IUD is left perfectly in place with its little strings hanging down.
And the best part? The whole insertion part of the procedure, it typically takes just a few minutes. It can definitely cause some pretty intense cramping for a moment, I won't sugarcoat that, but for most people, it's over before you know it.
And removal? It's usually even simpler. A healthcare professional just uses forceps to gently pull on the strings, and the flexible T-arms fold right up, allowing it to slide out really easily. Most people say it's just a little bit of minor discomfort.
And this is so important to clear up because there's a huge misconception out there. In the past, IUDs were really only recommended for people who had already had kids, but that advice is completely outdated. Today, we know that most people, including teenagers and those who've never been pregnant, are actually excellent candidates for an IUD.
So when you weigh everything, the incredible effectiveness, the amazing convenience, and you balance that against the potential side effects, the question you're left with is this: is an IUD the right choice for your body and for your life right now?
Ultimately, that's a conversation to have with your doctor or healthcare provider. They can help you figure out what the absolute best fit for you is. Thank you so much for joining us for this MediByte Explainer. If you found this helpful, we'd love it if you'd hit like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more clear, reliable health info. See you next time.